Hi, everybody. I am just like overjoyed to meet Lisa. So on Twitter, she's at Doorway Project, and she says she doesn't talk on camera, but we're going to change that. And you're the executive director here?
Chief exec.
Chief executive. And we're in a rural community, a small town in the United Kingdom. About an hour's train drive from London, about a 2-hour drive probably.
Yeah.
And we connected over Twitter, and I just so respected her before we even met because she's very real, and I've always migrated and been attracted to real people. So tell me about rural homelessness. Tell me from your perspective what you deal with every day, because usually the big difference about rural homelessness is people that live in these towns say there's no homelessness.
That's very much so. I mean, and this is the main difference is the fact that you won't see it here. And we call it hidden homeless because you won't see the guys on the streets. They're very much hidden. They'll be in tents, they'll be sleeping in cars, they'll be sleeping in sheds, garages, barns, basically hidden away because of the public prejudices. So in an area like this, because it's not visible, it's very hard for the public to actually get a perception of the fact that there is an issue in the first place.
But you have some very real crisis. I mean, my heart broke today. We won't mention any names, but there was a couple of gentlemen here that are sleeping rough, and they're suicidal, and it was like the world's against them. One gentleman, a very nice young man, didn't have any food, was, boosting food, shoplifting, then, gets in that whole cycle of getting in trouble with the law, and now is banned from all the places to get food, so he can't get food, so you're like the only place that will feed him.
Yes, it's been quite an emotional session today, actually.
It was.
It's very difficult to see grown men crying.
Right.
It's very difficult to see people losing their self-respect and their self-worth week after week after week. And the issue that we're dealing here is the fact that being rural, there aren't the services available. So there's a lack of funding for specialist services. And basically we are just putting plasters on wounds, and just picking up the pieces. But at the same time, we see people deteriorate very quickly over a period of time. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. It's been an emotional session today. Yeah. I
was just arrived as the session started, which is, the day center time that they open, and just a gentleman came in and the strap broke on his backpack, a nice hiking backpack, and he was in tears. And you might not think that's a big deal, a backpack strap, but that's everything they own. And your team worked to get his backpack fixed.
Yeah. And
this is somebody that was going through some serious depression. And that meant the world to him. Now, what I saw the differences is today is you are not just a day center. You're trying to get people out of their situation. You're not just Band-Aid. You said plaster it, but you're not just plastering it because you advocate for these people.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Because you had housing people here, you had community policing, you had drug addiction, mental health, medical people here.
I think that's one of our strengths is the fact that we are working with partner agencies. So we're not an advice centre, we're a signposting service. We'll do the support and the mentoring and the befriending, but most of it is signposting to people who are specialists. Because of the range of stuff that we cover, the issues, we can't specialise in any of that. You can't keep up with benefits and housing law and everything.
Right.
So we work very closely with the specialist agencies and bring them into the centre so that they can do, or it's not even referrals, they're working across the table. Everybody's at the same level, status-wise. We're all equal in here. And so you're working across the table, you're in a conversation where you can do direct referrals, but you can also get instant information from the specialist agencies. And they're all in the one place. So if you have somebody who's got a mixture of issues, you've got 4 different agencies here that you can just pass them to one after the other. It's like a production line sometimes in here. That sets us apart from possibly some other day centres, and the fact that, we're not just a cup of tea and a pat on the back. We're providing the specialist services, but we're also, alongside the basic needs, we're working on increasing self-worth, increasing self-confidence, motivating people. giving them a reason to get out of bed in the morning, or a reason to get off the park bench in the morning, a reason, with the guys today, give them a reason to live.
Yeah.
And actually just the small thing of mending somebody's rucksack made such a difference to that guy today.
See, somebody said this week. I forgot who. I'd give them credit. Homelessness is not the problem. You can't look at people on drugs and say drugs are the problem. It's the pain that they're trying to hide.
Yep.
It's the relationship crisis, the economic crisis. It's what caused people to be in homelessness. Yeah. That's the problem. And one of the things that I saw that you did was so great, or your team did, was, and I wanted to take a picture, but there's no way to get everybody's permission, right? Is you couldn't tell who was staff and who was clients, rough sleepers, because you all mingled together.
Yep.
You all ate together, you drank together, you're playing games together, talking together at all the different tables. I mean, usually you go into a day center and there's like homeless people, and then there's staff, and once in a while they'll engage, and you guys are all like hanging out together like a family.
And that's really important, and that's how we build the relationships, and that's how we can do the work, because we're building up the trust, we're building up the relationships from the minute they walk through the door. We call them guests because that's setting the tone from the word go. So they're not service users and they're not clients, because that sets the status levels straight away. So they come in here, and actually, because I've got such a strong, cohesive team. We've got about 50 volunteers and 4 members of staff. We all work together very, very closely. So we're actually welcoming people into a family atmosphere, but a very effective family atmosphere, and it goes on from there really. But that you have to set that initial environment of trust to be able to work with people, because actually when you start asking the questions about why they're homeless in the first place, or why they're sofa surfing, or why they're just about maintaining their tenancy, there's a whole lot of stories are coming out. There's so many issues, and then you start talking about childhood and stuff like that, and they need to be in a safe, secure environment to be able to get that out and to trust us.
And we've talked about this, but it's just common sense. You're in a small community, so you're not a big budget operation.
No.
So you've got to do a lot with a little.
Yes.
And fight extra hard.
We run hand to mouth, literally hand to mouth. If we have 3 months worth of funding in the bank, then that's a good time. We've got it down to where we've actually had a month's worth before, and we've been very close to closing. But that kind of puts us at the same level as our guests. We don't have big funding. None of it is we don't know what's going to happen in 6 months' time, let alone a year's time, which means that we're constantly having to reevaluate what we do. We're constantly having to fundraise. We're constantly having to go out into the public and talk to the public so that we can get the funding from the public. So actually it's self-perpetuating. And it sounds awful, but if we were in an organisation where we had sustainable, I don't want to talk myself out of sustainable funding here, but if we had sustainable funding, I wouldn't have such a reason for getting out of bed in the morning to go and get the funding to carry on doing what we do.
One of the things that
I would like sustainable funding.
I'm with you. Oh my gosh, I believe in the tooth fairy and Santa Claus.
And the millionaire, and the super millionaire.
Right.
Yeah.
The one, I've really been blown away, and I just talked to Richard from Pavement Magazine about the similarities. And one of the things that you talked about today as you were working with people was how the breakdown of the system is, and I forget the actual term you guys have. We call it disability. We call it SSI, Social Security disability for people that can't work.
Yeah.
And how there are people on the streets that cannot work. However, they can't get their benefits, and it's like years and years, and then you got to go to court, and it's just maddening.
It's really not helping, because there's an entire reassessment of the benefit system at the moment. I mean, we had a brilliant example today of a guy who obviously is unfit to work.
Yeah.
And he came in tears this morning, this afternoon, he came in the door in tears because he's got his tribunal next week. So he's got to go into the magistrate's court and face a doctor and a solicitor, and he's got to sit down and he's got to actually plead his case.
Alone?
Well, he'll have representation from the CAB.
Okay.
But he's basically got to plead his case as to why he's appealing against a decision for them not to give him his DLA, when actually you can see that he's not fit to work because he's nearly blind.
Right.
It's not rocket science.
And it's been like 3 years that he's been doing this battle, or several years.
And what the system doesn't take into account is the mental health issues, because he is really scared. And this has been hanging over his head for a long time, and this is regularly happening now as people are going through the appeal system and tribunal. It's the mental health. It's the stress of the build-up to it, of trying to get the paperwork together, about, trying to go to the seat, trying to be proactive, get all the stuff together so that and then actually walk into a magistrate's court and actually tell the story. Now, if you've got mental health issues, you're not going to be able to sit down in a magistrate's court and talk about your mental health issues. But but somebody down the line will turn around and say, no, they're fit to work.
Okay, here's your 15 minutes, well, 15 seconds, because it can't make too long. And you did rough sleeping, homelessness. You guys call them sofa surfers.
Sofa surfers, yeah.
How do we fix it? What do we do?
What's
wrong? What's broken? What's going on?
I don't know. I don't have the answer. It's way bigger than just housing. We need to provide more supported accommodation. We need to be able to, with the support, so that you don't just put somebody into a tenancy and expect them to be able to cope.
Right.
They need ongoing high levels of support. We need to get organisations and agencies to work together better, more effectively. I mean, we're really lucky that we get everybody into the centre, so that all the agencies are working together around the table at the same time as working with the guests. But it doesn't happen out there. I don't have the answers, and it's going to get a lot worse. It is getting worse, and it's going to get worse. I'm just, part of a little organisation in the middle of rural Wiltshire, trying to do the best for the local guys here. I don't have the answers on how to fix the problem.
Well, yeah, but you're fighting a good fight. You even said you're going to try to house everybody before I got here.
Well, I did try.
If anybody was going to do it, I believed you.
I got let down though. It wasn't my fault. I got let down.
You know what I mean? It's a hard battle, and as you said, it's people working together. It's the support of housing. Let me close with this one question, because I want to. A lot of the people that you'll see on Invisible People that I've interviewed here in the UK say they don't want to stay in hostels. Mm-hmm. So for those in the States, how I've been able to picture hostels is what we call SROs, which are single room occupancies, which often are in bad neighborhoods, a lot of drug dealers, just not the best situations. Is that the same here? Is that why they don't want to stay in hostels?
Yes. I mean, it's very difficult, because you need to have the hostel there in the first place, because they need the emergency accommodation, then all the temporary accommodation. You need to have the high enough levels of support within a building where you've got people in there that, certainly the majority of hostels over here will only take the really vulnerable. So you have to have the drug and alcohol dependencies, you have to have the mental health issues. In effect, I would never want to run a hostel. In effect, you're taking a whole group of people with high levels of support needs and you're putting them into a building together, and everybody's got to form a community within that building.
You're warehousing
exactly
issues,
and you're shutting them in their rooms, and somebody's got to manage that.
And there's no healing.
Bloody hard work. I wouldn't want to do that.
Right. We do the same thing in the shelter system in the States.
We got a guy, that you met today, who walked out of the hostel yesterday because he'd rather be sleeping rough than actually be in the hostel.
Right.
And this is the issue: is that if you're in recovery or you're trying to abstain, if you've got those levels of usage around you, you've got the temptation. You're going to succumb, and then you're not going to be able to move on yourself. And they can be quite scary places to be into. If you don't have the addictions in the first place, they can be quite scary places to go into.
Well, I could sit and talk to you forever, and actually I am going to, because she's hosting me tonight, and I'm really grateful. How do people support you? What's your website address? What's your blog? Twitter is already at Doorway Project.
Website is It's been a long session. I can't even tell you my website address. I don't know. It's Doorway Project, I think.
We'll put links underneath.
You do that afterwards.
Doorwayproject.org, isn't it?
I can't even think what my website address is. All the information's on there. We've got our own community blog, which is really important. It gives the guests a chance to speak. We've got Twitter on there. We've got YouTube. We've got Flickr. You name it. It's all on the website.
Yeah. Very cool.
Google it.
So I don't usually do this. I let everybody talk about their their website and everything, but and then I always say, if you're local, well, obviously I doubt anybody watching this is local.
Oh, they might be.
They might be. Well, if you're local, give twice as much. If you're not local, give 3 times as much. I've been around a little bit. I've toured hundreds of homeless services in cities, and now 3 different continents, or 2 different continents and 3 different countries. And I really, Lisa needs some help, and if you can give a little, give a lot, because they need it, and this is a great place. So
Thank you.
thanks everybody.